Hello ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities and identities, and welcome back to another Torchwood review. And today's Torchwood review is none other than Miracle Day. Miracle Day picks up after the events of the Children of Earth. Yarnto Jones is dead. Torchwood is essentially dead. The world has moved on and is moving into an age of what is supposed to be bliss. However, it soon becomes clear after Captain Jack begins to try and wipe himself from the archive that people aren't quite happy with Torchwood and will essentially do everything in their power to hunt down the remaining Torchwood employees and make sure they're wiped clean off the face of the earth. It also appears that after using Jack's blood, everyone has become immortal on Earth. Nobody has died in the last 24 hours, and Jack can't seem to figure out why. However, what Jack does begin to realise is he's become immortal himself. The longer the effect takes over the planet, he finds himself in a kind of critical position in which he may actually die for once. This whole story starts off with Rex in a car accident and then waking up and managing to survive it miraculously. Alongside this, many people the exact same day seem to get in similar accidents, but they're not dying, they're just suffering in pain. One patient suffers so much that Jack watches a burned corpse begin to breathe air and try to talk, but due to the mannerism of its death, it becomes incapable of speaking. Meanwhile, back in Wales, Gwen is just enjoying her life with her family when all of a sudden she has to shoot a giant helicopter at the sky and basically blow things up with a rocket launcher. Jack and Gwen reunite when Jack almost gets poisoned by an American official. It becomes clear that everyone is trying to pot Jack off at any cost, trying to scrub his name from the record once and for all. The other thing that kicks off this whole Miracle Day process that's going on in this storyline is the fact that a convicted paedophile who should have been put to death on death row manages to escape death. Now, he plays off in this story a bit of a Donald Trump, except there is one major difference between him and Jack Robertson from series 13 of the 13th Doctor. This individual, after getting praised up and treated as like the messiah to the Miracle Day cure, soon witnesses the horrors that are taking place, and then begins to reject everything that's happening. He wishes for death every single second of this series. He points out that his life feels meaningless. He knows what he did was wrong, and he knows that if he does it again and again and again, people would just keep suffering. So he tells Jack that he is not a good man. Jack, of course, rejects this and points out the fact that people can change. It's just a shame he didn't change sooner. He points out to Jack that there's no turning back from what he's done, but he will accept that burden up until the day that he finally can accept death. And he hopes that they will put him back in that room and let him die once and for all. Jack soon discovers that the reason why everyone is immortal is it turns out an old affair that Jack had back in Italy. Turns out that a lot of Italians were taking his blood and storing it in cold storage. They then harvested the stuff and fed it into a membrane at the bottom of the planet. The crust of the membrane begins to react when Rex begins to feed it his blood, which is the blood of an immortal, and reverses the process. Jack suddenly becomes immortal once again, whilst everyone on Earth becomes mortal. However, the only problem is Rex has been infected with Jack's blood for so long, so after the events of this story are supposed to conclude, Rex finds himself to become very immortal. He then blames Jack and points out that Jack has partially done something to him, especially after someone tries to shoot Rex in the chest. So, Miracle Day. What did I think of this story? It's a very bold statement and a very kind of niche way of departing from the Torchwood storyline. At the forefront of it for its time, I definitely thought that Miracle Day was the end to the Torchwood saga as a whole. Well, up until I discovered all of the Big Finish stuff. However, I do feel like it neatly packs up a couple of plot holes in the storyline and definitely ends off from where it started. We're kind of in a mid-ground with Miracle Day, this kind of unknown territory. I mean, we haven't got Yanto, Gwen, and Owen and Tosh anymore. We've just got Gwen and Jack. And to bring Rex in is definitely a bold new opening to try and sell Torchwood to America. However, quite clearly after the ratings on this story and how conflicting this storyline becomes, it's quite clear that the direction of the story is all over the place. There is, of course, the most memorable scene in this of Gwen punching someone in the face and saying she's Welsh, and a couple of other memorable moments in which they get to enjoy Miami Beach and just going from set place to set place. However, it does become apparent to me whilst watching this back, and every time I've watched this, that there is kind of this big hole gap where it doesn't really feel like Torchwood anymore. Maybe that is because Yanto was killed off, or maybe it's because Yanto, Tosh, and Owen were killed off. But something feels like it was missing in this kind of series. I definitely feel like in the recent years with the gay reporter and a lot of top secret agents for Torchwood being brought into the audios, it's definitely helped fill the gap. I feel like Torchwood's biggest vulnerability is not having enough members. It's okay to watch the crew die eventually, but without the members to build up the Torchwood gang, it definitely doesn't quite feel like Torchwood. I mean, especially with Gwen's storyline and how she's moved on, it definitely becomes a conflict with the fact that we know that Gwen has a family and kids now. So Jack just bringing her in as a Torchwood agent definitely begins to become a big conflict. After all, there are so many other places Jack can go in the stars. Why does he keep concentrating on Earth? And what is his obsession with coming back into Gwen Cooper's life? Is it some special fling that he's missing? Or is there something deeper to it? I guess we'll never know. But what becomes apparently clear between the pair of them is that they need a team once again. And this story doesn't really help that. It gives them a temporary fix within the reporter and Rex, but overall there's a lot of gaps in this storyline. I feel like the strongest point in this whole story is the fact that we have the burning corpses and people with cremation. That's that dark, twisted, great kind of graining part of Torchwood. However, them also walking around with that convicted paedophile for most of the story really does not help. I mean, yes, we can see that they're trying to show the darker natures of humanity, but it doesn't quite help the story. I feel like we could have had him separate from them. Yes, we could have had him celebrated as a martyr. That was perfect storytelling. But other than that, him being around the Torchwood team really begins to bring the whole house down. So what would I give Miracle Day overall? Well, as I said, there's some parts of it that are good and some parts that are bad. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 just to give it the benefit of the doubt. But I definitely feel like Miracle Day could do with a lot more advancements to it. Maybe it can be brought up and gone back to in the future. But for now, that's my score. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next Torchwood review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible night, you beautiful people.